This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Tanzania tanker explodes, killing dozens trying to siphon fuel. Messages of encouragement and support as South Africans celebrate Women's Day. And 85 migrants rescued off the Libyan coast. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. New study in Nigeria shows only 27% of mothers practice exclusive breastfeeding. We tell you why it matters. And in sports, South Africa's Apiwe Dianti eyes success at Rugby World Cup in Japan. At least 60 people have been killed and 70 others wounded in a fuel tanker explosion in Tanzania. Regional Commissioner of Morogoro said the vehicle overturned on the road in Morogoro, 175 kilometers west of Dar es Salaam. A crowd gathered around the overturned tanker trying to siphon petrol from it before the explosion. The bus station serves as a major hub for passengers travelling to other parts of Tanzania and is a popular spot for bodabodas. That's the motorbike taxis common in the region.
We were leaving the scene to get a knife and to cut out the people trapped inside the vehicle, but the flames had started and my customer fell off into the fuel. That was flowing out of the tanker and he was burnt alive.
Well, let's now cross over to Isaac Lukando, a local journalist who is standing by for us in Morogoro. Thank you very much for joining us. We know the number of those killed has risen to 61. Can you give us an update on the situation there?
Thank you. As it stands, the number in terms of what the official statistics have been given by the authorities here in Morogoro, the number still remains the same while the authorities continue to further investigations into the cause of the accident and the exact number of deaths. At the moment, that is still ongoing in terms of investigation. There have been official statements from the government, particularly the government spokesman, who has asked people not to spread pictures of charred bodies from the site of the accident. And this is the case also with the Zanzibari Ministry of Information. So in terms of statements, apart from what has been said earlier on today, that the number could be higher than 60, we're still waiting on official numbers if they have increased, but they have asked the citizens of the country to hold off on spreading via social media pictures that show charred bodies. So in terms of an update, this is where we stand while we wait on further investigations and what the government has been able to find out.
It's a tragic day for Tanzania and of course with many injuries. How are emergency services coping?
Well, in terms of how the first responders responded, they did an amazing job because within a short time after the explosion, you would see officers of the fire brigade on the scene, police officers trying to help whoever they could, and quickly cordoning off the area. People who were standing by with vehicles, they were able to help some of the injured people to the regional hospital here in Morogoro. So in terms of responding quickly to the situation, the authorities have done a pretty good job, but I assume that they were really stretched thin because of the sheer number of people that were involved in the accident. So given the situation, they did a pretty good job, although they were stretched very thin.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. That was Isaac Lukanda there, a local journalist in Morogoro. Well, I'm now joined in the studio by Kelvin Cooper. He is a program officer for emergency operations at the Kenya Red Cross Society. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having
From
me.
your teams on the ground, how would you describe the scale of this incident?
Thank you for having me. This emergency is huge magnitude. It has devastated communities in this particular town. 60 people dead at the last time of checking, and over 70 people also injured. That is a huge magnitude incident, and you know, mirrors what has been happening in many countries, including what we've seen here in the country in Kenya.
We'll be talking more about that in a moment. As you say, about 70 people were injured. And what kind of support will these people be needing?
So in emergencies such as this, which would involve a huge number of people with injuries, mainly burns, what would happen is that these people will first of all require a lot of blood. So we would urge many people who are living in close to these areas to go and donate blood, because a lot of these people will require blood transfusion and also plasma to support them. Then you have hospital care. So most of the hospitals there will also be experiencing an increase in the number of casualties they will be managing. Going forward, you have a lot of people dead, so there is also the need to support families in terms of counseling, psychosocial support, because a lot of the images that are coming out of that place are, you know, horrific. And so most of these people will require that in the short term, and you know, a lot of support going forward, especially when it comes to counseling.
Okay, we shall return to you. Let's, as you were saying earlier, it's not, there are many of these incidents happening in Africa. The incident in Tanzania is sadly not the first of its kind on the continent. In 2013, a similar incident killed at least 29 people on the outskirts of the Ugandan capital, Kampala. In Kenya, back in 2009, at least 130 people were killed after a tanker exploded in a similar incident in a rural town of Sachangwan. Further afield in West Africa, Nigeria has witnessed several incidents linked to fuel tanker explosions. Though warnings have been issued, poverty leads many to gather at the accident scene.
Once beating, twice shy. That idiom does not seem to apply to many when it comes to scooping fuel from petrol tankers involved in accidents in Nigeria. It's far too common to see people scurrying for fuel from a falling fuel tanker, even though they're well aware of the risk. And when an explosion occurs, as is always the case, the result is death, sometimes in high number. In January this year, around 60 persons were killed in the Nigerian southern city of Calabar while scooping fuel from a tanker that ran into a ditch. This is after similar incidents had occurred elsewhere in the country, where a number of persons were killed. But the victims of the Calabar incident simply didn't learn from the previous accidents.
One of the root cause of this continuous loss of life through people going to scoop fuel has to do with our societal values. Our values as a society and our value as individual members of the society. The only reason why people will go and be scooping fuel is because they believe they can make easy money out of it. Even if I scoop 5 liters, if I have a generator, I put it there, why will I go back there again if not for the lure of the money that I think is behind it? So the next thing to do in tackling this thing is to educate people that it's wrong for you to want to benefit from another man's misfortune.
That education is hardly lacking. In Nigeria, for instance, the government often runs media campaigns discouraging people from approaching fallen petrol tankers and scooping fuel. But the recurrence of the incidents simply means many are not heeding the warnings.
One of the values that we should begin to look at as a society is the importance of human lives, because it's human beings that improve the society in which they are. And where human beings don't realize that anything they do that makes them irrelevant in the scheme of things in society, such as going to scoop fuel, that eventually results in the loss of life, will result in the loss of the quality of the human resources that is in that society, that will eventually improve the worth of that society.
Poverty has also been adduced as one of the reasons why hundreds of men and women have died from tanker blast across the continent. Survivors of such accidents often say they plan to sell the fuel on the black market to make a living for their families. But the issue certainly goes beyond poverty. People are simply not learning their lessons. Deji Badmo, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Well, as we've seen there, huge casualties from fuel tank explosions are common in Africa. How can they be prevented?
A number of ways. One is, first of all, moving a lot of cargo from the roads, like taking that to the railway systems. But in many of these African countries, what you realize is that most of the railways have been left, so we need to revamp the railways so that we can move a lot of this cargo, and not just fuel, because we have other hazardous materials like acids, which can also be corrosive. So that's one. We also have to move a lot of this cargo also to the pipelines, because this ensures that we have less and less fuel tankers moving on the roads. And the third one is, using the low risk or low exposure routes and time. You can move this cargo at night when we have less and less people on the roads, and that reduces the number of casualties that you can get in some of these emergencies. And what is also important is general road safety is something that is very important, including also marking and repair of roads. So it is a number of activities that need to be undertaken by a multitude of different players to ensure that there is that adequate mechanisms to prevent this. But what is also important is communities also need to undergo some sort of awareness session so that they know not to get into these places in the first place. An accident happens, the first thing you have to do is, move away in that particular area, because you reduce your exposure to such hazards. So, yeah, those are some of the things that some governments can look at to reduce some of these emergencies that we see frequently.
Okay, so safety training and changing the mode of transport.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming in. Kelvin Cooper there, Programme Officer for Emergency Operations at the Kenya Red Cross Society. Thank you. Moving on to other news now, a car bomb explosion in the eastern Libyan city of Benghazi has killed 2 United Nations staff. That's according to several medical sources. The UN is trying to broker a truce in the capital Tripoli, where the eastern-based Libyan National Army launched a surprise attack in April. Libyan National Army spokesperson said the 2 people killed were part of the United Nations Libya mission. 10 people had been wounded, among them children. The explosion happened in front of a shopping mall and bank. At least one burned out UN car could be seen at the scene. A car bomb explosion in Benghazi killed 2 UN staff, as we said there. We are going to a short break now. Don't go away, lots more to come, including 85 migrants rescued off the Libyan coast. And new study in Nigeria shows only 27% of mothers practice exclusive breastfeeding. We tell you why it matters.
For lucrative economic data out of the country, the country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed, and this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
French non-governmental organisation charity ship, the Ocean Viking, has rescued 85 migrants from an overcrowded rubber dinghy off the Libyan coast. According to the NGO's project coordinator on board, 5 women and 4 children were among those rescued. A hotline for migrants run by a network of activists said it was alerted to the boat and immediately informed the authorities and the Ocean Viking team. This is the latest rescue operation in the Mediterranean.
So last night we were alerted to a boat in distress. We searched all through the night. This morning, with the assistance of aerial assets, we were able to locate the boat. So we were able to complete a safe rescue and have everybody on board. We have 85 people total. It was including 5 women and 4 children, and the youngest child is just 1 year old.
Hollywood star Richard Gere has called on the Italian government to help migrants who have been stranded on a Spanish charity boat in the Mediterranean for more than a week now. The boat was at sea near Lampedusa with 121 people on board from earlier rescues. Gere showed support by helping bring food and supplies to the boat. Standoffs with non-governmental organisation boats have become common in the last year as European member states are at odds over who should be responsible for giving migrants asylum. Every year, the month of August is set aside to celebrate and reflect on women's achievements, as well as the problems they face as they try to improve their role in society. CGTN's Yulissa Njumela has more.
The month of August is set aside to celebrate women in South Africa. Their works, their achievements are put on the spotlight.
And so we put that spotlight on a trade fair for women's crafts.
This is Bryanston's Organic and Trade Market in Johannesburg. It was started 42 years ago. At the core of this market is organic fresh produce, but has since extended to other crafts. Many women trade here. Here we met Promise Mahlangu. Mahlangu operates her grandmother's Ndebele beading stall. Her grandmother, Margaret Nokotwane, has been beading since she was 15 years old. With this work, the grandmother has managed to successfully bring up a family of over 20 people.
My grandmother has over 25 grandchildren. She taught all of us how to use our hands to make these. She fed all of us over time through this. My uncle and I are now more involved and are able to make these. Otherwise, we are who we are because of her and her craftswork.
On the other side of this market, we meet Ethiopian national Messinesh Gabriselassie. She specializes in cotton products that originate from her country.
This is done by very different artisans because in Ethiopia we have different skills from different regions. So we incorporate those regional designs into our products. We are creating jobs and maintaining families, educating women and children, and we want that skill to transfer.
There's a large contingent of women traders in this market, and over the years, they've collaborated on different projects.
And there's something about when women are working together, they know how to collaborate. They're the feeders of the children and they're the educators of the children. And I'm not saying that men don't have a part to play, and there are amazing men as well. But there's something about women collaborating together that makes them incredibly successful. So we've seen women in this market for over all of these years doing amazing, amazing things.
International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8 every year. And here in South Africa, the rest of the August month is filled with activities that illuminate women's work, achievements, challenges, and a myriad of other issues. Yulissa Njumela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Medical experts say that many health challenges in later life can be avoided through proper breastfeeding at birth. Medical practitioners have for some time advocated breastfeeding for at least 6 months. But in Nigeria, a new study has shown that the number of mothers practicing exclusive breastfeeding is dwindling. So why is this happening? CGTN's Deji Badmus has the details.
Breast milk to a child is what solid meals are to adults. But unfortunately, experts say children are not getting enough of breast milk these days. One survey in Nigeria, National Maternity Entitlement, estimates only 1 in 3 babies born in the country is exclusively breastfed, clearly contrary to advice from health authorities that mothers should engage in 6 months exclusive breastfeeding.
Exclusive breastfeeding actually helps to bond the mother and the baby together. It also helps lessen osteoporosis for the mother in later life. It's also important for maternal health because women in that period are prone to ovarian and breast cancer, but breastfeeding helps to, lessen all of that.
Despite the obvious benefits and more, today's young mothers are shying away from exclusive breastfeeding. Mother of 2, Amaka, who has practiced both exclusive and non-exclusive breastfeeding with her 2 children, says there were observable differences from her experience.
When I was exclusive breastfeeding, I wasn't gaining so much weight as I did when I wasn't with my daughter. And my stomach actually came down faster with my son than when it did with my daughter. And then the bonding, like when I was exclusively breastfeeding my son, he started smiling at me and giggling on time compared to my daughter.
But she's quick to add why she chose not to do exclusive breastfeeding with her second child.
I was working, I had jobs I was doing, and I didn't have anybody assisting me at that point. So, and then the housework and cooking and going to the market and all of those stuff. So my son was with me 100% of the time, and it was a real struggle. So I just made up my mind that, it's going to be the last time I would actually exclusive breastfeed any child.
It's the same experience for quite a number of young working mothers. But beyond that, experts say there are also other reasons why today's mothers are not into the exclusive breastfeeding idea.
For the most part, I would say because it's not very convenient for them. Convenient in quotes. So most mothers, our generation currently like to look very, very social media friendly, picture friendly. We like to make things really well packaged and all. So most of these new mothers wouldn't want to go through the stress of having to bring out their breast in public to breastfeed their baby, or they just feel like it's plain too difficult.
The government is now looking at implementing parent and work-friendly policies such as paid leave to support mothers and encourage exclusive breastfeeding. It's also launched a national zero water campaign to discourage mothers from giving water to their babies under 6 months. Deji Badmo, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh, the sports news coming up for you after the break, including South Africa's Afiwe Dianti eyes success at Rugby World Cup in Japan.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal